Good evening, everybody, to all our followers and friends. Tonight, we have Matt Phillips, friend and one of the therapists and educator, which I highly and always highly respected in the industry. Matt Phillips is a sports therapist, is an educator, and is a runner. And it's very, very passionate about running, about runners' well-being, about helping runners to achieve their goals. And through this passion in running, Matt created this amazing conference. In fact, I think it was two of them actually. The Run Chat, created first of all this community Run Chat Live, which culminated into those amazing conferences where the best of the best on running, on evidence-based practice related to running and runners' needs met. So we had people like Bartold, people like Esculier. It's amazing. One, it was in Brighton and it was in person, and the year after we were all online, but still fantastic, Matt. That was one of the absolute best conferences I ever been. But also now Matt is well known to be the regular host of the Sports Therapy Association web chat, which it's live broadcast every Tuesday evening at 8 o'clock. If you are a therapist and you're thinking, oh, which professional association shall I join, do go and have a look at the STA. You don't need to be a member to follow the Sports Therapy Association web chat, but as a Sports Therapy Association, they're fantastic and they're very community-based. So we are here tonight because we want the school and Matt, the school actually contacted Matt, and we wanted him to run a course on gait analysis, but that was a little bit the end of a conversation actually, because originally we often speak how us as therapists, we often impose what we think our needs are onto the runners. Runners are a very particular type of population, isn't it, Matt, in order to treat at the clinic?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, without a doubt, they're a very strange creature, and I include myself in that.
And we find that often when we discuss that, we found that often we impose our beliefs and what we think runners should be doing or could be doing better through what, as therapists, we believe, both personally and professionally. But why do you think, Matt, in your experience, both professional and personal, why do you think runners seek help from us, soft tissue therapists, sports therapists, hands-on therapists?
Good question. And first of all, thank you. Thank you for the lovely introduction, and thank you for inviting me along. And thanks for inciting me to resurrect, because it's been a while since I've done my gait analysis courses, and we can talk about that a bit later on. But yeah, you've given me the reason. Basically the way you run your school and how you have managed to update the teaching of soft tissue therapy has allowed what I have been teaching and maybe introduced a little bit too early 10 years ago to actually make more sense now. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think thanks to people like you in the industry, you're going to produce soft tissue therapists who, when I turn around and say, don't forget about this, they're going to go, oh yes, we've heard this already, as opposed to, what the hell are you talking about? You're going to destroy my career. This is terrible.
Matt, I remember when you invited over Greg Lehman. How many years ago was that?
Yeah, that was the first conference that Greg actually gave in the UK.
Yes.
It was like a tester for his reconciling pain science with biomechanics.
Amazing, but how far ahead you were already?
Oh yeah, it was hugely ahead of its time. Too ahead of its time.
Indeed.
You know, although the people who back in that day actually attended the conference, a lot of them have gone on to become really good educators, and they're kind of shining now You know, back in the day, I remember people like Chris Kitson came on one of my early courses at 𝐼𝐴𝐼𝐼, and this was going back probably 10 years. 𝐼𝐼𝐼𝐼 himself, obviously he was there when I came to your place as well, and there was therapists there. And looking at these clinicians, I have seen that they've gone on to be pretty good educators because they kind of got a few clues earlier ago. But anyway, yes, runners. I think what's really helped me as an educator is working with runners, because the running community are exceptional for a few reasons. And one of them is there's probably a higher incidence in running than any other community, probably because you don't need anything to do it. It's one of the only sports where you can go out 366 days a year if you want to. You're not waiting for a pitch to be freed up. You're not waiting for the rest of your team. You're not even really dependent on a particular type of weather. You can just put on what you need to, put on your shoes, and you're out and you can do it. Now, maybe because of that, that introduces kind of a very high incidence of running. But the fact is, depending on what study you look at, over 1,000 hours of running, there's between 3 and 59 injuries. And that depends on mainly what the studies decide as a running injury. But to break that down, to give runners and therapists an idea, if you say, let's say an average of 30 injuries per 1,000 hours, that means if you run, let's imagine you run 5 hours a week, that would be 100 hours in 20 weeks. That means you can expect every 20 weeks to get an average of 3 injuries. Now, if that was the case for any other sport, the team would just be cancelled, or, you know, it's ridiculous really when you think about it. But runners kind of put up with it. And it means that for anybody who is interested in working with runners, there's a double-edged sword, because one, massive population of people who need you. Two, massive population of people who think that you're conning them and they don't want to know anything about you. You know, so there's some serious barriers. And this is what mainly my gait analysis course is about. It's not just about the old-fashioned way of putting a run on a treadmill and giving them outdated information. It's about understanding that the runner who comes to see you has got a lot of misinformation. They've been let down a lot of times. They're tired, fed up about injury and re-injury, and they don't honestly trust people who are saying, I can fix all your problems, because every time they go and see someone, it's something new. So it's exciting. And the way I've designed my gait analysis course is to hopefully give therapists the tools to actually help runners to break down that lack in trust they've got, and therefore from a business point of view have access to a lot of people and be able to give them a service where you'll be able to charge. This is really important, and something we'll go into from a business point of view. You'll be able to charge more money per client and earn more return for your investment.
Also, Matt, you know, I really like the fact that we are focusing here with this, call it special population, okay? Because actually what we know from the evidence that a client likes when their therapists know about the condition or know about the sport and so on. And sometimes we treat runners and we think we know, because maybe we reflect it on ourselves and on our beliefs, but actually sometimes, or indeed I would say often, we haven't got the skill set to actually cater for the whole well-being of the runner, for their needs, what they need. So, because you hear it very often, they come to us and they have these beliefs which they've been built by other therapists, or indeed by social, you know, by talking to other people or by reading newspapers or media. And we know, don't we, that it doesn't, that those beliefs do not reflect what the evidence is telling us. And there is this lack out there of care for that particular population within an evidence-based framework, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could look at it and get quite excited, because now we're getting better at realizing that it doesn't matter if we haven't got all the answers. We're getting better about realizing that we're working with the client, of listening to them. The whole idea of, if you ask us the right questions and keep listening, then the runner themselves will tell you what's wrong with them and how to kind of work with them and fix them. So we're at a far better place than we are now. But there's been, I mean, since the 80s, when running research kind of started, the 1980s, that is, it would be, wouldn't it? Yeah. Since the 1980s, the incidence of running injury hasn't come down. And that's quite an important factor, because it means that despite all of these ideas, the shoes, the DVDs, the running forms, the schools, the gait analysis, everything that we've all promised, there's still just as many runners getting injured. So we've been doing something wrong until now. And like I say, the kind of things which the school, the soft tissue therapy school, is touching on, as in the psychosocial components, as in working with a runner and not with a running injury, as in working with the runner instead of on the runner. All of these things are finally coming around now and being supported by the research, by more modern research, to actually give us some really interesting tools where we can. But the biggest obstacle is, and one of the things we'll really be focusing on in the Gait Analysis course, is how do we get the trust back from the runners? How do we deal with the fact that we're going to tell them something, or not, I don't even like tell them something, we're going to work with them and get them to realize something. And then they're going to go back to their club or back to another runner, and they're going to be told, oh, rubbish. They're going to be told, oh, they told you something new, have they now? What a surprise. I was told this. I've been told something. And there's a lot of pressure on runners not to listen to us, you know, and especially in a year which 2023 we know is going to be very difficult. So two things. One, runners are going to have less money. Okay, so we've got to be careful about kind of suddenly offering a new service. That's going to present its own barriers. And two, therapists are going to be struggling for money. So what I'm going to try and do with this is, rather than have soft tissue therapists thinking I've got to get twice as many clients in now and getting even more stress, trying to force, 8 people a day and just, falling off the wagon that way, I'm going to try and provide people who are kind of interested in working with runners, or already working with runners, with a tool to actually do what we really should all be doing with time and experience, is charging more for one client, because we really have studied, we've been on good CPD, which is giving us proper skills, which are going to get us results to stand out from the crowd. So that's what we're all about.
Matt, why do you think both me and you, we come from a very biomechanical aspect of gait analysis, and the evidence-based framework now it's different. Why do you think it's still important that we deliver the gait analysis under an evidence-based framework? Why is it important that we update our knowledge of gait analysis and we don't deliver any longer what we used to?
That's a really good question, because I've found that by working with runners and looking at what traditional gait analysis taught us, it really puts into context some of the ideas which maybe people will learn when they're on a modern soft tissue therapy course like the ones you run. It will put into practice ideas of, is symmetry, for example, the path to success? Because by putting people on treadmills and having this equipment to actually watch what they're actually doing, as long as you realize that as a human being, you're going to be tending to avoid what you don't want to see and looking for what you've been taught, as long as you keep an open eye and actually look for things, you'll realize that the norm is asymmetry. You'll realize that there's people who have got what traditionally has been interpreted as a red flag for injury, and they're not actually injured, or maybe the other leg is in pain, and everything contradicts itself. So I find that's really useful for the therapists, because it reinforces things which maybe they've learned, new things, but they haven't been able to put into context. And also, of course, the runner themselves, it's all very well telling a runner, oh, asymmetry is something we used to chase, and now it's not something that's even backed up by the research. But if you just say that to a runner while they're lying on a couch, it's going to be a little bit in one ear and out the other. But if you're putting them on a treadmill, or even maybe showing them footage, which is data protected with no faces or anything, that's a context which the runners can associate with. And we all know that the secret to education is putting things into context. Yes. So although a lot of the initial reasons for putting someone on a treadmill and a lot of the presumptions and the biomechanical kind of erroneous assumptions are now not valid, it's still very much a case of, if you want to get through to a runner, you want to work with a runner, then you've got to see them running. So unless you want to chase them around a track, get them on a treadmill.
Amazing. I love what you said. You actually, that conversation is contextualized by putting them, by analyzing the game, by putting them on a treadmill. I think that is fantastic. That's what, it has its place, but we need to be modern therapists and follow the evidence, because actually, obviously, it didn't work, did it? Otherwise. So as you said, why, let's go through a little bit some of the content, some of the learning outcomes of the course. What are you going to be delivering? I'm very much, I love your course because it actually changed the way I now do gait analysis. It's amazing. But what is it that is different from what we would call a usual gait analysis course?
Okay, so it's going to, the more I look at it, the more excited I really am. I'm not just saying that as a marketing thing. I'm generally excited by it because I'm in education and I've tried and tested a lot of things that work with, whether it's a class or workshop or a presentation. I know what kind of works and what the parameters you need to put so that people absorb information. But so we will be running through, the idea of this course is it will suit somebody who has no idea of gait analysis at all. Okay. But that doesn't mean it won't be useful for people who are currently doing gait analysis, because one of the greatest things we use in education, one of the important things we use in gait education is peer education. So peers helping each other. And often people who come along to in a class environment will learn better from fellow learners rather than just sitting there and listening to somebody at the front. So one of the things I'm looking forward to on the course is having people who are currently doing gait analysis, who know all the different stages of stance, and they know what position to expect the body to be in and what's happening with regards to deceleration, acceleration. They'll know that. But I'm looking forward to having them in a conversation with people who've got no idea, so that we can guarantee from the beginning that we're using everyday language. The idea of sitting like in the 1920s in a massive hall with like loads of benches and just people staring at the professor at the front, that's not, we know that's not the way for a lot of people to learn. So it's going to be very interactive, very similar to what I've heard when we talked on the Sports Therapy Association podcast about how you conduct your courses and your soft tissue therapy. It's about communication, talking to each other, and therefore discovering through that maybe difficulties and barriers to learning. Ideas might come up that I wouldn't even think of, you know. So it's going to be starting from the beginning, looking at the basic biomechanics of running, how people move, the different points in the gait cycle, looking at the perceived causes of running related injury, which some people will be familiar with. Some of it will relate to postural analysis, which is done in a clinic, because we do exactly the same thing. Traditional gait analysis will presume that if a joint is not working in what we regard as normal, which typically means kind of symmetrically, then that is the cause of the pain. So we'll do a lot of familiar ground and turning it into a treadmill related area, and we'll look at the perceived, and then we'll compare it with the evidence. And I don't want to just chuck research at people. I want to hear if people have already come across research, but I will obviously be putting in, it's important to see how the research works in these areas. But it may just be, in a lot of cases, the research just isn't definite, it's gray, and that will introduce the idea that it's okay to be gray. It means that what we're doing is a bit more of a jigsaw as opposed to working on a car where we know that this cable goes here. A lot of it will be understanding current concepts in pain, because that's a big factor as well. That will introduce the whole idea or reconfirm the idea of the biopsychosocial model. And then once that's all done, then that kind of changes, hopefully, when I do say people, right, so how long are you going to spend in your subjective assessment? What are you going to do before they get on the treadmill? And hopefully that will mean people kind of thinking, oh, I need to chat to them a little bit more, don't I, before I put them on the treadmill, and so on. We might change our objective and so on. So that will be the kind of, I mean, 2 of these are being done online, which is a lovely idea as well.
Yeah,
people
this
haven't
is
got
why
to travel.
I was going to say,
Congratulations on that.
I love the hybrid, because it allows in 2023, like you said, it's going to be hard for everybody. It allows the therapists to do it at their own time. They don't have to travel. They don't have to the expense, but also they have time to digest it.
Yeah, it's really
and
good
to
idea.
have, I do think Zoom gives you the little bit, literally the kind of one-to-one attention with the tutor. And then by the time they come to the session, to the live session in Exeter, they already have digested some of the information, and they will be better at interacting on the day. I think it's a great idea.
Really good idea.
Yeah.
And of course, it'll be recorded, so they'll be able to watch it back in their own time. And also, thanks to, I mean, this is one of the weird kind of advantages of COVID and having to teach for 2 years online. I'll be using some software which will allow learners who attend to interact, to write things down anonymously, because this is some of the things which we take for granted. Some people on the course probably won't want to speak up because they'll be fearful of making mistakes. That again is the world we live in now, sadly, mainly due to social media. People are scared of even writing a blog, and it's so sad because they fear that they're going to be jumped upon by other people who are going to laugh and make fun of them.
Let's provide this safe space to learn.
Exactly. So there will be opportunities. When I ask questions like, do you know any of the parts of a gait cycle, people can write confidentially. I will see their answers, and that way I can start building a relationship and knowing who the learners are, which obviously is really important. And then hopefully over the course of 2 of those online mornings, people will start, if they want to, sharing their answers publicly and that sort of stuff, and just getting that confidence. Because the other thing we'll be looking at, and we all know it's true, if you're taking on a new kind of service and working with a new population, you got to fake it till you make it. I think that's something Greg Lemon said to me like 10 years ago. He says, fake it till you make it. You got to do it, because helping people is, the contextual effect is really important. If they come in and you don't look very sure of yourself, they're probably not going to come back. They need to be confident that you know what you're doing. So a lot of the time, and I teach this to I'm not sure, but when I'm teaching, I have to teach sometimes posture analysis and looking for that damn kind of posterior superior iliac crest and the anterior, and you're fumbling around and you're looking on someone's back and you can't find it. So I'm teaching my students, look, just pretend to find it. Ah, that's it. Fantastic. Scribble Mickey Mouse down on your pad and then walk around to the front looking very confident. You've got to do it, because if you start going, oh, that's weird, I can't find it, they're going to think, what are you doing down there? So the same thing goes for anything. So we'll be looking at that. We'll be looking at techniques of how to fake it till you make it. And then, like you say, when people are there in person, that'll give us a chance then to look at how important is gait software? What type of software, what's the expense going to be? And we'll look at some alternatives.
Was my next question actually, Matt, because often therapists says, oh, but when I used to run the pressure plating, that is a $7,000 equipment, and most people, they don't have the money. So will they need a big expense after the course?
This is again very much a business orientated discussion for the course.
Yes.
You've got to look at your market. You've got to look at where you live, who you're trying to attract, whether you are expecting your market to travel all the way down. When myself and my brother had Stride UK, our main source of our audience were traveling maybe 200 miles because we were right next to a station. I had people coming from America to come and see me because they just saw the information. They liked what they heard. They saw the website. And there was I remember father bringing his daughter, who was a very respected under 16-year-old sprinter, down to Brighton to get on the treadmill. I said on the phone, you sure? Really? You sure you come that far? It's like, yeah, definitely. It's no, don't worry. Because I felt like, how come you're traveling that far to come and see me? But this was the kind of our audience. And for that, it was important that people walked in and they saw that it was all the flashy equipment. We had a fantastic lab. We had an excellent treadmill, and it was all bells and whistles. And yeah, it cost a lot of money, but that was our audience. But if you're not going to do that, if you're a therapist and you know that you've got loads of colleagues and friends at the local 5K park run, you don't need to impress them. You've already got your audience. So you could come in and you could just use an iPad, you could use your phone. So
this is why
I like knowing your audience.
And this is why I like your course, because it will empower the day-to-day therapist, which sees the day-to-day runner, like you say, the park run father or mother, the harriers, or they run the local clubs. They empower, and it's something that you can put into practice on the Monday morning, because it's a your course gives the principles around it, and then they can take it higher and higher in the future courses and so on. So I think that is quite important, that actually you can adapt it to your own audience and client base. You don't need to have the expensive equiment for it.
And the income you've got. I mean, I'm so conscious that we're launching this course in a year, which is going to be difficult. So my top priority for the content I'm delivering is that people who attend will have the tools to actually make some money, to get a return on their investment, because no one wants to spend 250, 300 quid on CPD and then just not see their earnings go up. People need to be doing this, and then within a month or two realizing, wow, this is cool, I'm seeing less people and getting the same money, or whatever it's going to be. So that's my priority.
We know that once you work with a type of group, especially runners, you work with one and word of mouth catches really easy. But also Matt's course is going to give the knowledge to be able to actually do a little talk at your local running club about
Probably
it.
we'll talk a lot about that.
Yes, so that there are going to be some skills on how to use that from a business perspective. Fantastic. So do you want to say the dates, when the dates are?
Well, Anna, as far as I know, the first of the online mornings is Saturday, the 6th of May.
Correct.
And then the next one is the week after, the 13th of May. So we'll have a week to digest, maybe watch some recordings.
In the morning. So it's
in the morning as well. Yeah. I'll be giving homework and things for people to do. So some activities. So it's not just a case of turn up on Saturday and then turn up the next Saturday. You'll have stuff to do, hopefully, to put in practice. Then we'll go through the homework on the 13th and expand on that. And that'll be 2 opportunities to get everything I can do with you where we don't need to be actually touching and moving around and that sort of stuff. That'll be done. And then once we get in person on the 20th of May, the week after, then we'll be able to put all of that knowledge into practice and start looking at actually testing our theories and putting people on treadmills and seeing the theory in practice. And also give us a chance to look at some of the knock-on effects of things like gait modification and re-education. We can spend a little time on strength training for runners. And because one of the big take-homes is going to be gait analysis, yes, still very useful, probably not for the reasons we often advertise, but still very useful. But like everything, it's like a sandwich. It's what's become before it and after it. Put the gait analysis in the middle. The days of just putting someone straight on the treadmill, watching them and then telling them what's wrong with them are long gone. Some businesses still manage it, but it's dying. I think a lot of businesses are realizing now it's not sustainable.
Not for long. People are getting more demanding and actually things are changing in the media as well. So I absolutely, and that's why I'm so excited that you agreed to run this course with us, because when I looked around, they're not run. They're still very old narrative gait analysis courses, and we need to move on. And
they're changing a little bit. I spend a lot of time looking at what people are giving, and I was looking at what's being offered at the national running show, which sees huge amounts of runners going through the gate, and that's really interesting because that'll be what they show is what so many runners will come out with in their minds. And it's interesting to see there's a lot more maybes and could in the literature. Now I don't know whether that's because they're worried about being sued, but when it talks about a gait or adjustments we could make which may have an effect on injury risk, whereas like a year or 2 ago it would be far more definite. So they're definitely seeing, the big companies are seeing what small fries like myself and you are doing, and they're moving with it. It's tricky because their economies of scale are much bigger and they're dealing with thousands of people, so they can't change it. They're still going to make it very friendly for the public on a large scale, but it's dripping through. But then kind of round the corner, I was reading something, and then after that, scroll down, and it was like, what was it? It was like a 10-minute spinal assessment followed by a 5-minute massage sort of thing. And I was thinking, well, there we go, straight away. What are you going to tell someone if you give them a spinal assessment in a running show? And it was like, which kind of made me laugh, but made me think, good. There's still a lot for us to do. We're not going to be out of business for a while.
Indeed. Oh, we are so much in our silos sometimes, Matt, and we don't realize what some of the industry is still like. Anyway, let's wrap this one up. Thank you very much. And we look forward to start the course. We're going to put all the information about the course in the post, but also some information about Run Chat Live and Matt Phillips. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye now.
Bye-bye.